Have you ever wondered why the person who loved you the most suddenly disappeared without a fight? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the greatest act of love isn't holding on, it's walking away. The people who care about you the deepest are not always the ones standing closest to you. Today, you'll discover the hidden psychological reasons why genuine love can create distance instead of closeness. By the end of this speech, you'll never look at silence, absence, or emotional withdrawal the same way again. If this message is helping you see relationships from a different perspective, take a moment to support this journey by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with someone who may need these words today. Sometimes one new perspective can heal years of misunderstanding. Now let's continue. Perhaps the hardest lesson is this. Not everyone who leaves is abandoning you. Some are abandoning the version of themselves they fear would eventually hurt you. Some are fighting battles they never learned how to explain. Some are trying to love you the only way they know how, even if that way looks like distance. This doesn't mean you should chase people who continually walk away, nor should you romanticize emotional unavailability. Healthy love still requires communication, honesty, accountability, and mutual effort. But understanding the psychology behind distance frees us from making one dangerous assumption. If they left, they never cared. Sometimes they cared more than they could carry. The mature response is not to endlessly wait, nor is it to become bitter. It is to recognize that another person's emotional struggles are not always a reflection of your worth. Your value does not decrease because someone couldn't stay, and their departure does not erase the love that may have existed. Life teaches us that people express love differently. Some embrace, some protect, some sacrifice, some leave. The deepest wisdom is learning to recognize that human hearts are beautifully complicated. Sometimes love speaks through presence. Sometimes it whispers through distance. And sometimes the greatest tragedy isn't that love was missing, it's that love was present, but fear spoke louder. So if someone once walked away from your life, don't rush to rewrite the story as proof that you were unlovable. Perhaps the story was never about your lack of worth. Perhaps it was about someone carrying more pain than they knew how to heal. And if you are the one creating distance from someone you deeply love, remember this. Silence may protect for a moment, but honest communication has the power to protect both hearts. Because in the end, love deserves courage more than fear. And the strongest relationships are not the ones where nobody is afraid. They are the ones where two people choose honesty despite their fear. Most people believe that if someone truly loves you, they will always stay close. They will call often, spend more time with you, and never let you feel alone. While this can certainly be true, human emotions are far more complex than that. Sometimes, a person who loves you deeply chooses to step back, not because their love has faded, but because they believe their presence may cause harm. They may be struggling with emotional pain, personal failures, financial pressure, mental exhaustion, or unresolved trauma. Instead of allowing these struggles to affect the person they care about, they create distance. From the outside, this behavior looks like rejection. It feels cold, confusing, and even cruel. But from their perspective, distance can become a form of protection. They may believe, I don't want my problems to become your burden, or you deserve peace, even if I can't give it to you right now. This is one of the greatest paradoxes of human relationships. Love does not always move people closer. Sometimes it convinces them to step away because they value the other person's happiness more than their own desire to stay. However, this does not mean that every person who becomes distant is acting out of love. People can also withdraw because of fear, avoidance, loss of interest, or unhealthy relationship patterns. The important lesson is not to automatically assume that distance always equals a lack of love. Every situation has its own story. Real emotional maturity comes from understanding that human behavior is often shaped by invisible inner battles. Love is not measured only by physical presence. It is also revealed through intentions, sacrifices, and the desire to protect someone, even when that protection is imperfect or misunderstood. Human beings are not built to handle intense emotions in the same way. While some people move closer to those they love during difficult times, others instinctively pull away. This reaction is not always a conscious decision. It is often the mind's way of coping with emotional overload. When someone falls deeply in love, they may experience joy, hope, excitement, and a profound sense of connection. But these positive emotions can also awaken hidden fears: fear of rejection, fear of losing the relationship, fear of not being good enough, or fear of becoming emotionally dependent. If these fears become stronger than their ability to manage them, the person may begin to withdraw. Imagine carrying a glass already filled to the brim with stress, past disappointments, family pressures, or unresolved emotional wounds. Even a beautiful emotion like love can become one drop too many. Instead of feeling safe, the person feels emotionally overwhelmed. Their mind seeks relief by creating distance, believing that stepping back will reduce the intensity of what they are feeling. To the other person, this withdrawal often appears confusing. They may ask, "If you love me, why are you pulling away?" The answer is that love itself is not the problem. The problem is that the emotions surrounding love have become too powerful for the person to process in a healthy way. This does not mean that withdrawing is always the right response. Healthy relationships require communication, honesty, and emotional responsibility. Creating distance without explanation can leave the other person hurt and uncertain. However, understanding that emotional overwhelm can lead to withdrawal helps us realize that people's actions are not always a reflection of how much they care. Sometimes, they are a reflection of how much they are struggling within themselves. The deeper lesson is this: strong emotions do not always bring people closer. Without emotional awareness and resilience, they can sometimes drive people apart. Not because love is weak, but because the human mind is trying to protect itself from feelings it does not yet know how to handle. One of the most painful truths about human relationships is that people sometimes distance themselves, not because they want to hurt someone, but because they are afraid they eventually will. A person may look at their own life and see emotional instability, unresolved anger, financial struggles, unhealthy habits, or a history of broken relationships. Instead of believing they can overcome these challenges together with someone they love, they begin to think, "If I stay, I'll only bring pain into their life." This belief slowly changes their behavior. They become quieter. They stop sharing their feelings. They avoid making promises. Eventually, they create distance, not because love has disappeared, but because guilt and fear have become stronger than hope. This kind of thinking often comes from deep self-doubt. When someone believes they are not enough, they may see themselves as a risk rather than a blessing. They convince themselves that leaving now will hurt less than staying and causing greater damage later. In their mind, separation becomes an act of mercy. To the person left behind, however, the experience feels completely different. Silence is often interpreted as rejection. Distance feels like abandonment. The absence of explanation can create questions that linger for years. Did I do something wrong? Was I not worth fighting for? The tragedy is that both people may be suffering for different reasons. One is carrying the pain of leaving, while the other is carrying the pain of being left. Neither fully understands the invisible struggle happening in the other's heart. That said, good intentions do not automatically make silence the right choice. Choosing distance without honest communication can unintentionally cause the very pain the person was trying to avoid. Love grows stronger through openness, not assumptions. Even difficult conversations are usually kinder than disappearing without explanation. The deeper lesson is this: sometimes people step away because they fear becoming the source of another person's suffering. Their actions may be misguided, but their motivation can still come from genuine care. Understanding this does not erase the hurt, but it reminds us that human behavior is often driven by inner fears that remain unseen. Not every battle a person fights is visible. Some of the deepest wounds leave no scars on the skin, yet they shape the way a person thinks, feels, and loves. When these emotional wounds remain unhealed, they can convince someone that they are incapable of having a healthy relationship. These wounds may come from childhood neglect, betrayal by someone they trusted, repeated rejection, or painful experiences that taught them one lesson: getting close to people only leads to pain. Over time, this belief becomes part of their identity. Even when genuine love enters their life, they struggle to accept it. Instead of asking, "Can this relationship make me happy?" they ask, "How long until I ruin this?" This is the silent voice of an unhealed heart. A person carrying emotional wounds often expects disappointment before it happens. They may constantly doubt their partner's love, overthink small misunderstandings, or become afraid of emotional intimacy. The closer someone gets to them, the more vulnerable they feel. And vulnerability, to a wounded mind, can feel dangerous. As a result, they begin to pull away. They may become emotionally distant, avoid deep conversations, or convince themselves that ending the relationship now is better than waiting for it to fall apart later. They are not running from love itself. They are running from the pain they believe love will eventually bring. The heartbreaking part is that they may genuinely care for the other person. They may dream of a lasting relationship. But their past experiences speak louder than their present reality. Their wounds whisper, "You are too broken to be loved." Or, if they truly know you, they will leave. Believing these thoughts, they withdraw before giving love a chance to prove otherwise. However, it is important to understand that emotional wounds explain behavior, they do not excuse harmful behavior. Every person has a responsibility to recognize their struggles and work toward healing. A healthy relationship cannot survive if one person continually pushes the other away without communication or effort. The deeper lesson is this: people do not always leave because they lack love. Sometimes they leave because they have never learned how to receive love without fear. Until those hidden wounds begin to heal, even the warmest affection can feel threatening instead of comforting. Many people believe that love means holding on at all costs. They think that if you truly care about someone, you should never let them leave, never stop fighting, and never accept distance. But mature love understands a truth that possessive love often ignores. Sometimes respecting another person's peace is a greater expression of love than insisting on your own happiness. Love should never become ownership. No one belongs to another person. Every individual has their own dreams, responsibilities, fears, and life journey. When someone truly loves another, they recognize that forcing closeness can sometimes become a burden rather than a blessing. Imagine someone who realizes that their presence constantly creates conflict, emotional pressure, or prevents the other person from pursuing important goals. Instead of demanding attention or asking the other person to sacrifice their future, they choose to step back. This decision is not always made because they want to leave. Sometimes it is made because they care enough to respect the other person's freedom. This kind of distance is often misunderstood. The person left behind may think, "If you really loved me, you would have stayed." But from the other person's perspective, staying may have felt selfish. They may have believed that holding on would only create more stress, guilt, or emotional exhaustion. In their mind, giving space became an act of kindness. True love is not measured by how tightly you can hold someone. It is measured by how deeply you respect their well-being, even when doing so requires personal sacrifice. This does not mean giving up easily or abandoning a relationship at the first sign of difficulty. Rather, it means recognizing that love cannot thrive where freedom is replaced by control. However, respect should never become an excuse to avoid honest communication. Creating distance without explanation can leave the other person confused and wounded. If space is truly needed, expressing that need with honesty and compassion is far healthier than disappearing in silence. The deeper lesson is this: real love seeks the good of the other person, not just the satisfaction of one's own desires. Sometimes that means standing beside them. Sometimes it means giving them room to breathe, grow, and find peace. Distance, when chosen with wisdom and respect, is not always the opposite of love. It can be one of its quietest expressions. One of the greatest tragedies in human relationships is that an act of sacrifice can easily be mistaken for an act of rejection. From the outside, They often look identical. A person becomes distant, stops reaching out, or quietly walks away. The one left behind naturally concludes, "They stopped loving me." But beneath the surface, a very different story may be unfolding. Some people carry a deep belief that love is proven through sacrifice. They have learned, through life, family, or painful experiences, that putting another person's happiness before their own is the highest form of care. As a result, when they believe they can no longer provide peace, security, or stability, they choose to remove themselves from the relationship. In their mind, leaving is not abandoning the person they love. It is protecting them. They may think, "You'll have a better future without me. I don't want my struggles to become your burden. You deserve someone who can give you what I cannot." These thoughts are often born from guilt rather than reality. The person is not necessarily seeing the situation clearly. They are seeing it through the lens of self-doubt. They underestimate their own value while overestimating the pain they believe they will cause. To the person who is left behind, however, none of this is visible. They only experience the silence, the absence, and the unanswered questions. Without knowing the hidden motivations, it is natural to interpret the distance as a lack of love. This is why communication is so important. A sacrifice that is never explained often feels no different from rejection. Good intentions remain invisible when they are locked inside the heart. Honest words, even painful ones, are usually kinder than leaving someone to create their own explanations. It is also important to recognize that self-sacrifice is not always healthy. Constantly denying your own needs, believing you are unworthy of love, or deciding another person's future without involving them can damage both people. Healthy love is not built on silent martyrdom, it is built on trust, honesty, and shared decisions. The deeper lesson is this. Sometimes people walk away because they believe it is the greatest gift they can offer. Whether that belief is right or wrong, their departure may come from love rather than indifference. Understanding this reminds us that actions alone do not always reveal the true intentions of the human heart. Love, when mixed with fear and self-doubt, can disguise itself as rejection, even when its deepest desire is to protect. One of the clearest signs of mature love is this. It does not ask, "What can I gain from this relationship?" Instead, it asks, "What is truly best for the person I love?" This shift, from self-centered desire to genuine care, is what separates deep love from mere attachment. Attachment often says, "I need you to make me happy." True love says, "I want you to be happy, even if it costs me something." This does not mean that love requires constant self-denial or endless sacrifice. Rather, it means that real love is guided by concern for the other person's emotional, mental, and personal well-being. It celebrates their growth instead of fearing it. It supports their dreams instead of controlling them. It encourages their freedom instead of demanding their dependence. Sometimes, this kind of love makes difficult choices. Imagine someone who realizes that their own unresolved struggles, unhealthy habits, or life circumstances are preventing the person they love from living peacefully. They may decide to step back, not because they no longer care, but because they believe the other person's future should not be limited by their own pain. From the outside, this decision can appear cold or confusing. People often judge love by physical presence, assuming that staying is always the greater proof of affection. Yet there are moments when holding on becomes an expression of fear, while letting go becomes an expression of care. However, genuine love also understands that another person's well-being includes emotional honesty. Protecting someone should never mean making decisions for them without their knowledge or denying them the chance to choose. A relationship grows stronger when both people face difficulties together with openness and respect. Real love does not control, manipulate, or demand ownership. It recognizes that every individual has the right to make their own decisions and follow their own path. Loving someone deeply means respecting their dignity, their freedom, and their ability to decide what kind of life they want. The deepest lesson is this. True love is not measured by how tightly someone holds on, but by how sincerely they seek the good of the person they love. Sometimes that means standing beside them through every storm. Other times, it means putting their peace above personal desire. In both cases, love is not asking, "How can I keep you?" It is asking, "How can I help you become the best version of yourself?" One of the most painful assumptions people make is believing that every goodbye means love has died. When someone walks away, ends a relationship, or creates distance, the immediate conclusion is often, "They never truly loved me." But human relationships are rarely that simple. Sometimes a goodbye is not the opposite of love. Sometimes it is love trying to survive under impossible circumstances. There are moments in life when two people genuinely care for each other, yet life places obstacles between them that neither of them knows how to overcome. It may be emotional wounds, family responsibilities, personal dreams, financial struggles, or fears that have remained unresolved for years. Instead of fighting those battles together, one person may choose to leave, believing it is the only way to protect the one they love, or to protect themselves from causing further pain. In this sense, goodbye becomes a kind of emotional armor. Just as armor shields a warrior from injury, emotional distance can become a shield against heartbreak. The person is not necessarily trying to destroy love. They are trying to protect themselves from a pain they believe they cannot endure. Unfortunately, this armor also prevents love from being fully expressed. It keeps both people safe from immediate hurt, but it also keeps them apart. To the person who is left behind, this can feel deeply confusing. They may replay every conversation, searching for the exact moment when love disappeared. Yet in some cases, love never disappeared at all. What disappeared was the person's ability to carry the weight of the relationship. Fear, guilt, or emotional exhaustion became stronger than their courage to stay. This does not mean every goodbye should be romanticized. Some goodbyes happen because respect has been lost, trust has been broken, or the relationship has become unhealthy. In those situations, leaving is not an expression of hidden love but a necessary step toward healing. It is important to recognize the difference. The deeper lesson is this: a goodbye does not always reveal the absence of love. It may reveal the presence of fear, pain, or inner conflict. Human beings are capable of loving deeply while still making decisions that hurt the people they care about. Understanding this truth does not erase the pain of separation, but it helps us see that the human heart is more complex than a simple story of love or no love. Sometimes love embraces, sometimes love waits, sometimes love fights, and sometimes, when it no longer knows how to protect itself, love puts on armor and quietly walks away.